So here's the real mechanism that I want to give you because I don't want you out here in these internet streets just feeling like I want to do this, but it's not working. I don't want you feeling this way. I want you to get it that content is supposed to inform. Demand has to change the way someone feels, it has to change the way they believe, it has to change the way they think. So there's a huge distinction between content creation and creating demand. Two different jobs. And a tip tells you what to do. It doesn't touch what you believe is possible or true or allowed for you. And I can teach you 5 ways to raise your rates, and you're still not going to raise your rates because information was never what was in your way.
Booked and unbothered, confidence and courage, mindset and messy middle moves of entrepreneurship.
Welcome to the Booked and Unbothered podcast, the podcast for high-value women navigating mindset, marketing, and messy middle moves of entrepreneurship. Here is where we turn clarity into cash and presence into power. I'm your host, Yarden Carroll, mother to 3 amazing boys, wife, storyteller, and brand engineer. Mic on? Let's get into it.
So I really need to say something that I hope it doesn't ruffle anybody's feathers, and I don't want anyone to be defensive because I really want to keep it 1,000 with you. Posting more content is not going to save your business. And I know that somebody has told you this in a mastermind group, in your coaching program, and a Facebook group. Shit, they probably even told you this morning the complete opposite of what I'm telling you to do, which is they're telling you to post daily, stay visible. You have to play a numbers game and beat the algorithm. But I really want you to unhear this advice, especially over the next 20 minutes or so. Because right now what's happening is that Instagram's own numbers are throwing the industry under the bus right now. For a total loop, the average engagement has dropped significantly from almost 3% to under 1%. And that has happened in the last year. The platform that's supposedly the answer is not only quietly telling on itself, it is creating this dynamic where it is so hard for people to reach their ideal buyers. And if you ask me, that's not an algorithm problem, that's a demand problem. So I'm strongly convinced that you don't need to post more. And what you really need to start thinking is, how do I create demand? And those are 2 totally different jobs. And most of us, myself included, I've been there, done that, have been doing one, which is creating content on this hamster wheel while praying and hoping for the results of the other. So I want to welcome you back. If you're new here, welcome to the Booked and Unbothered podcast. This is the podcast for high-value service providers who are not only building profitable brands and profitable businesses, we're doing it without over-explaining our brilliance, without shrinking. I am your host. I'm Yarden Carroll, and I not only help experienced service providers package and position their offers and their services, but I help them build businesses that create more clarity, consistency, and capacity. So today, I really want to get into why you creating more content is not converting into clients. And even though you've been doing everything you've been told to do, by the end of this episode, you're going to know exactly why posting more content is not the answer. You're going to know what's actually happening in the mind of your ideal client before they hop on a call, before they slide into your DMs. And I really want to give you 3 specific moves that you can make before you post your next piece of content. And that's my promise to you today. So let's get into it. So before we talk about why creating content is not the best option or the solution to your problem right now, we really need to get into what demand is. So I want to explain that to you, but I want to give you some context because real talk, I've been there. Okay. I used to sit in front of my content calendar at 11 o'clock at night, very organized, color coding carousels, color blocking my time, what I'm going to post this week. And I would do it almost like it was a part-time job. And I was spending more time color coding and organizing my content calendar than I was actually doing client-facing work, because I was on this endless hamster wheel. And I was fully convinced that if I just posted one more time that week or tweaked this carousel, that the clients were just going to keep showing up. But they did not. Okay. And it had nothing to do with my calendar or my carousel. And once they started showing up later for a completely different reason, I was shocked, and it took me too long to figure out what the real reason was. So here's what was actually going on, is that many of us think that your job is really to catch the people right when they're ready to buy, or to perfect or tweak your offer and have perfect timing. But most of the audience, they're not ready to buy, and they don't want to buy when you want them to buy. And it's not because your content's bad. It's just a numbers game. It's really about the math. So there's an Australian research institute called Ehrenberg Base. That's basically spent decades studying how people actually buy things. And their number is almost rude. And at any given moment, only about 5% of the market is ready to buy. 5. The other 95%, they're not shopping. They're not looking. They won't be for months. Shit, sometimes years. So if you're grading your content by, did somebody buy this week? Or if you're really grading yourself against the 5% of the room, and you just are completely oblivious or ignoring the other 95% of the people who are not going to buy, not just yet, your timing and the math is not going to add up when you think it is. So I want you to write this down, that people don't buy because they found your offer. They buy because they finally understood their problem. And that's where your content has to create that demand. And most content does not create that. And if I'm being honest, most content does not even try. And here's why this actually matters. Especially for the person that's listening to this podcast right now. You're not new to this. You're true to this. And you're not invisible. You've been visible. And what you don't have is a system set up that helps you stay remembered correctly while the other 95% of your audience waits to be ready. So when your business feels like this endless roller coaster or endless hamster wheel, where you have busy months here, quiet months here, I need you to understand that it's not because of inconsistency. But if you feel like you're overloaded on the output, but you're starved on the belief shift, because you really, really have to shift your ideal buyer's beliefs when it comes to the content that you post. And especially because there are so many people right now that are content creators and influencers. People are being inundated and overloaded by content. So you, as the business owner, as the subject matter expert, you have to be really diligent about the type of output you have and making sure that that output shifts those beliefs. And those are two completely different diagnoses, and only one of them gets fixed by posting more. Now I want to get into why your content isn't converting. So the cycle is never ending. The hamster wheel of posting content. You post, you wait, crickets, and then clockwork. You blame the algorithm. But for 1 second, I really want you to think differently. Think about the data, because the data is not supporting or backing you up here, especially if you're ready to blame the algorithm. The data is not backing you up. Buffer has looked at over about 50 million posts, and that goes from carousels, long form, reels, okay? And they did this for their 2026 report. And the annoying part is that posting more does raise your total engagement. Posting more does raise your total engagement. But your reach, maybe per post, no, it drops the more you post. And I want you to hear that again. The more you post, it's going to raise your engagement. But your reach, no, it drops, it declines. So you're working so hard for smaller and smaller rooms, and especially people who are on Instagram specifically, engagement has fallen from 3% in January of 2024 to under 1%. Today, right? and it's about to get louder before it gets quieter. HubSpot's 2026 numbers say 86% of marketing teams are leaning on AI now. And industry data says 91% of marketers are planning to publish even more content this year. Some 3 to 4 times is more than they were already posting. And only 6% out of all of that extra content that AI has been cranking out has actually improved their performance. So if everybody's out here doing more of the thing that's already not working, I don't want that to be you. It can't be you, because it doesn't matter if you do more work, because that shit's not working. So here's the real mechanism that I want to give you, because I don't want you out here in these internet streets just feeling like I want to do this, but it's not working. I don't want you feeling this way. I want you to get it, that content is supposed to inform. Demand has to change the way someone feels. It has to change the way they believe. It has to change the way they think. So there's a huge distinction between content creation and creating demand. 2 different jobs. And a tip tells you what to do. It doesn't touch what you believe is possible or true or allowed for you. And I can teach you 5 ways to raise your rates, and you're still not going to raise your rates, because information was never what was in your way. Your belief about what you're allowed to charge is what was in your way. So I want to make this real and say this week's post is, I don't know, 3 ways to raise your rates. Useful information, true, also completely forgettable. Nobody gives a shit, because the person that's reading that, the woman or man that's reading that, they don't have a knowledge problem. This person already knows the math. What he or she has is an evidence problem, because she hasn't built proof in her mind that the higher number or raising her rate is defensible. And content does not build that belief. Content does not give her that level of conviction, but watching someone say yes to it does. So the post that actually moves her isn't, here's how to raise your rates. That's not the post. It's the post that shows her why she's been discounting for everybody before anybody. And it names this fear that's sitting underneath. It's the same topic. So some of y'all not out here even making content. What you're doing is you have a gorgeous decorated business, beautiful logo, great fonts, and beautifully branded colors and shit. Gorgeous, right? But none of that shit converts. And a lot of the people I know are handing their whole point of view and their whole entire perspective over to social media managers just because they submitted the best caption that they saw that week. Consider that outsourcing your permission, outsourcing your authority. And it's exactly how they end up on this constant content hamster wheel, full of somebody else's framework, somebody else's post, somebody else's templated advice and guidance. And none of the shit is even in your own voice. Because that's what's happening right now, is people are so desperate to get the content out there that they're buying these low ticket templatized versions of TikTok, Pinterest, captions, and carousels and shit. None of it is their perspective. None of it is their point of view. None of it is in their voice. So here's the quiet proof if you need it. Think about how your last client found you. And I'm willing to put money on it. I'm willing to bet on it. It was not from Tuesday's carousel. It was probably a referral. Somebody who already trusted you, who had already done work with you, who you've got results for. They vouched for you, to somebody who was finally ready to buy. And that's demand moving through a relationship instead of a news feed. And your content's entire job is to make the referral conversation easier, because they're like, damn, I found her. That content, she's the one who explained it to me. Nobody else has ever done that. And then the types of questions that you ask once you get on that discovery call, it's a no-brainer to hire you, because your content did a lot of the work up front. All right, so I want you to stay with me, because I want to talk about how demand is actually created. All right, because this is where it gets good, and this is where it's really useful. Demand does not start with promotion. It starts with awareness. And I'm not talking brand awareness. I'm talking about the recognition of your own problem before you even are looking for a solution. So you have to be able to know you have a problem, be aware of a problem before you can go searching for a solution. And that's what I'm talking about, the stages of awareness. Okay. So there was a research study done out of Corporate Visions where they went through about 2 to 2.5 million real sales calls. And what they found was that the number one reason that these deals did not close, it had nothing to do with somebody picking a competitor. It was about indecision. More than half of the stalled deals, they stalled because the buyer, they never got the certainty that they were looking for when they were on those calls. So the buyer never got certain enough in their own mind and their own body to move forward. And it's not because they didn't want to, because let's be honest, who wastes their time getting on a sales call to not make a decision, whether it's a no or a yes? And it's not because they didn't want to. It's because they were scared of making the wrong choice. So, which really means that your job was never to convince that person to want what you were selling. It's to lower the fear of the indecision, right? Or to lower the perceived risk. And you do that by naming the actual symptoms, describing the pain, anything. And you have to give them the language for the thing that they've been fearing and the thing that they've been feeling. Because half the time they can't even explain it. But if you name it correctly and you use their language and you describe their symptoms and their fears and their risks to a T, they will become more aware. Nobody tells experienced service providers this part, but I'm going to tell you, because I love you, that you already have the level of expertise. But what you're missing is not more proof. It's the language. It's the language that makes your buyer feel like you've diagnosed them before you even pitch them a solution or before you even offer them anything. Because let's be honest, nobody's buying your fucking framework. They're buying the relief because they feel like you understood them. And honestly, this is way bigger than a content or a marketing tactic or a marketing tip. Because what I'm noticing, and I'm seeing the pattern, it's the same pattern with the women that I work with, is that they are often translating their entire career, especially the one that's had them softening their edge, over explaining themselves, making themselves so palatable before they could ever feel fully seen. And then what's happening is they wonder why their content doesn't do its job, why their content sounds watered down and whitewashed. It's hedging their bets. It's teaching real gently, and it never actually names anything, never names a point of view. It never clearly articulates their perspective on anything. So if your content won't say the real thing, the true thing plainly, it's not because you don't know the right thing to say. It's not because you don't know the true thing to say. It's because there's some part of you that's still asking for permission to say it. And I know one of my favorite artists is Missy Elliott. And I never saw her build her whole lane or her whole brand by watching what somebody else did, posting what they did or copying what they did. She built an entirely different lane, sound that was so specific that nobody could ever confuse her with anybody else. Never. Who raps backwards? And that's what your content is missing. You don't need more of the same whitewash, watered down bullshit. You really need a perspective or a point of view that's going to challenge the status quo or challenge business as usual. And it needs to be so clear that nobody could mistake it for the person next to you, right? So I went through a lot of things in this episode, but I really want to give you 3 action steps. I want to give you practical and actionable advice and real execution, because a reframe with no action is really just a nice thing that you heard on a podcast. And I'm sure you've probably listened to some really great podcasts out there. So action number 1, I really want you to go through your last 10 social media posts. And for each one of them, I want you to ask, is this teaching or is it helping my ideal client see her problem differently? Is it shifting a perspective or a belief? Most of you are going to find 8. 9 of them are going to be tips. Tips are not demand. Tips are fucking furniture in a house that nobody even bought yet, just staged. And a quick way to sort through it is two piles: things she could have Googled and things she couldn't have known about herself without you. Only the second pile is doing the real work. All right. So that's action item number 1. Okay. Action item number 2. I want you to stop asking, what should I post today? And I want you to ask, what belief do I need to change today? Write the belief first. One sentence. I don't want you hedging your bets, but I'll give you some context. Something like, I want her to stop believing that her discounting her services is humility. That's a belief that many of my clients have. Then I want you to build the post under that sentence. If you can't name the belief, then I don't want you to publish anything. You're not ready to publish anything until you're able to shift a mindset, a fear, a belief, a truth. You're just filling a slot in your calendar and posting just for the sake of posting. And a lot of people can feel it. And the way they feel it is by scrolling right by your ass. So action number 3, final action item. Before you hit publish, I want you to ask yourself if what you're about to publish, will this create demand, or is it just filling a spot on my content calendar? And honestly, if it is just filling the calendar, I don't want you to post it. I want you to find a belief, name a symptom, describe, diagnose a symptom, because your ideal buyer may not have the words for it yet. But if they land on your content, I'd rather you have one loaded post that beats 10 empty ones anytime. And that's really the whole shift, is that you need to shift from more intention on every single piece that you put out. So here's the key takeaways from this episode. And what I really want you to walk away with today is I want you to stop asking, what should I post today? And I want you to start asking, what belief do I need to change for my ideal buyer? Because content gets consumed. We know that. I proved that to you by the information. The data says that content is getting consumed. But demand is what people will remember you by. And those who are remembered, those are the ones who get hired, they get paid, and they get chosen. You don't have to be the loudest, but you have to understand your ideal client like no one ever understood them before. So I have a reflection question for you. So before you create another piece of content, I want you to sit with this question. Am I creating this to stay visible, or am I creating this to build demand that's going to make someone want to work? Those are not the same question, and your business already knows which one you've been answering. So if today's episode changed the way you think about your marketing, please send this to a coach, a consultant who's still stuck on the content hamster wheel. I hope you're sick of it, because you don't need another tip. You really need a reminder that you never know who's been waiting to hear you. So subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Every week, we're going to have honest conversations about marketing, messaging, mindset, and the messy middle moves it takes to build a profitable business. And we want to build businesses that grow through trust, not through trends. So until next time, please stay booked, stay clear, and stay unbothered. Bye.